Hello, hello, family. Welcome to Glimmers and Grace. I am your host. I'm Taraline Campbell, and I am so excited that we are here and that you have chosen to join me for tonight's episode. Today, we're going to talk about finding the grace in the shift. Yes, the grace in the shift. Life can be filled, as they say, with swift transitions. Sometimes the transitions are swift and other times they're slower. But one thing for sure, there are various transitions and shifts that we all must go through in our respective lives. And today we're going to talk about particularly career shifts. We know that we are living in a time where there has been much movement in the workforce,
Mm.
particularly as it relates to Black women. The data shows that nearly 1 million Black women have found themselves to be unemployed over the last year as the marketplace, as the federal government has shifted. So, we want to talk about finding grace in the shift. When we talk about making a career move, we typically focus on the strategy. We talked about the resume, the networking, the interview, but we rarely talk about the emotional weight of having to begin again, the emotional weight of having to start over. And I can say from personal experience that it takes a specific type of grace to start again, to stand in line and to tell yourselves it's okay that I don't know everything. It's okay that I don't have all the answers at this moment. It takes a special grace for that. And stepping into a new career path, stepping into entrepreneurship, it requires a blend, I believe, of courage and of patience. So when the focus is on the grace to do something new, also it entails the ability to navigate through uncomfortable, uncharted waters, and to navigate through that which is has become familiar and that which is unfamiliar, and that which is next, then you don't know what that next is. So again, I'm Taraline Campbell. I'm the host for Glimmers and Grace. And in this episode, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about giving yourself and finding the grace to do new things and why there can be strength and joy in the pivot. So, without further ado, I want to introduce you to a wonderful woman, a wonderful sister, and a wonderful friend. This is Shellisa Multrie, and we're going to just jump right into this conversation. Shellisa is the CEO of Multrie Ventures and Consulting. So, Shellisa, welcome to Glimmers
Thank
and
you.
Grace.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to join you. It is indeed an honor when you asked. I was like, absolutely. I would love to. I love you and I love everything that you stand for and the manner in which you serve others. So it's absolutely a pleasure to be with you.
It is my pleasure to have you. Tell us a little bit about your journey as it relates to finding the grace to begin again, because it's funny, like, it's so when we have conversations, I one of the things that I believe is important as we embark upon this podcast and what Glimmers and Grace is, us having conversations and giving voice to
Yeah.
situations that people have encountered, that sometimes when you don't know and when you're dealing with something by yourself and alone, you don't realize she's been through that too, and he's dealt with that as well. And it was really just a phone conversation, right, that
Yes.
you and I had, and realized that both of us had been through career shifts
Hmm.
and involuntary career shifts called downsizing or reductions in force or whatever the various terms
Yeah.
are in this day and age. So I want to hear a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was definitely, I feel like, divine for us to have our conversation and to be able to share that unique experience. For me, my transition happened in the summer of 2025, and at the time prior to that, I've been serving as a head of learning and development for a Fortune 500 company. Been in that space for a long time. This wasn't my first transition. The first one happened probably about maybe 14 years ago or so. So it's been a little while. But this definitely was, I would say it was not a shock to me. It was definitely unplanned for me.
Mhm.
And I say that because I think things have been shifting in the organization probably over probably about 12 to 18 months even before this
Okay.
actually happened. So, you see different changes. You see your organization shifting. You see just your, responsibilities changing, all of those things. So I felt like something was afoot. And
Mm.
I think that was God just kind of preparing me and preparing my mind and helping me be a little bit unsettled. But that happened last June, and it was ironic because I wasn't even at work. My mother had been ill, and so I was actually out of state. Caring for her, and the day after she came home from the hospital is when I got the news that my role was being eliminated. And so like I said, I feel like I had been kind of on this journey of preparing mentally for this space. And so, honestly, that day it was just like, okay, well, all right. Okay, God. And so, because I know, because of my past experience, I know that God is with me. It was really just like, okay, well, what's next? And so, for me, I went through this season of what I call my summer of rest. And so, last summer, I really took time to just focus on my family, be present. But what I did come to in that season was that I wasn't ready to re-enter corporate America. I did not want to go through the rat race of reapplying and all these types of things. I had a
Mhm.
couple of irons in the fire when I first got laid off, and they were okay. But even that, I was struggling or wrestling with getting excited about it. And so I just made the determination through kind of three exposures to three different people and newsreels and things that all had something to say about betting on yourself. Like, bet on yourself. They can't make a better bet. And so I decided to take that leap and to give myself a chance. I knew that I had the skill set. I've been in learning and leadership development over 20 years. And so, what I came to know of myself over the past few years is that there were people who would ask me to do training. I did training for my sorority all the time. I did training for schools and things like that. But it was kind of a if you know, you know, right? And they would
Mhm.
ask me. And so, stepping out into this journey, I feel like definitely was just God ordained because it allowed me to really use the skills that I have for me, for my benefit. And so I made that decision to not go back to corporate America and instead start MVP or Multrie Ventures for the people, which is
Mm.
all about people development, everything that makes people better. So team building, leadership development, training, those types of things, and really package those services to offer to companies and organizations. And so that kicked off last summer. It was funny because I even the first two clients I had, I was like, I really don't want to work until after Labor Day. And they were like, okay. And so I was able to really start, set my calendar and get things moving. And so for me, it was really just listening to my heart, listening to the space that I was in. I have had lots of conversations, even in the beginning of last year, where me and God were talking this thing out, like what's next, what's coming, and so I feel like this was just in line with that. And so we just got started, had two clients to begin with in September, and it's kind of taken off from there. So it really just, it was, I feel like in a odd sense, and I know it doesn't feel this way to everybody, but I feel like I was set free to do the
Mm.
things that I have been equipped to do, that I'm skilled to do, that I'm good at, and passionate about. That's what I treat my transition as. So a little bit of sadness, and I'm sure we'll get to that, but really more so like, what would you do? What could you do if you could? And which is funny because that's a part of what my old company used to say. "Eh, what would you, if you could, like, well, this is actually my own personal journey
Amen.
with that.
Amen. That is so powerful. As I was the opposite with my second as well, downsizing, and I had some severance, but I jumped. I took a month off, and then
Mm-hmm.
I jumped right back in to the
Yeah.
workforce, and I realized, and I did it out of necessity, financially, but at
Mhm.
the same time, I initially went into some roles that were not necessarily the best situation for me and the best fit. And I regret that. And over the last year, while I love the company that I'm working, I really enjoy where I'm working now and what I do. I also realized that as I saw
Mhm.
uh, colleagues and friends and sorority sisters and church members who were losing their jobs and separated from their employment. I shared this with my therapist, therapy and Jesus. I believe in that. Let me put a pin there.
Mhm.
But I
Me
shared this
too. Me.
with my therapist and some close friends, right? That I think that in seeing others lose their jobs, I went so hard into the grind and of mine that I lost part of me in 2025. And
Mhm.
if and my therapist said that I'm not the only one who was, have shared that. Like I had to
That's
admit that as I was doing my year end evaluation, self
yeah.
evaluation, like this year has to be different. But I did it and from a standpoint, a posture of necessity, like I'm seeing them lose their jobs. I can't do that. So this is what I'm gonna do. And just too much grind, and I
Yeah.
lost part of me. So I learned that, and I wanted to share that just from a standpoint of transparency, and so that we touch those who went into entrepreneurship, who did do as you did and bet on
Mhm.
yourself, which is so powerful, and those who just maybe have hit some bumps and bruises along the way of
Mhm.
still as we're still working to show ourselves some grace. I want to back up and ask you, Shalisa, when you went into after you were set free, did you have the why me?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's human, right?
Mhm.
There is something that was lost. And like I said, even though things were different and they were changing and all, I still, it's like, man, because I think it makes you feel like you're not valued, like there's something that
Yeah.
you did, there's something that, is a reflection of your performance and your work and something about your character. Yes, I absolutely had that feeling. And I think that that's human to feel that way because there is a loss that we have to acknowledge. And so I think in the most immediate moments, it was like, all right, well, let's figure it out. But I will say that maybe a couple of weeks after, I did have a moment, a day. I remember this day where I had to kind of cry it out a little bit
Mhm.
because that was in me, right? Like that,
Mhm.
I lost that. And I think even more so than the job itself, this was to talk about a job. This was like my dream thing that I wanted to do, right? Like this was the thing I've been working towards. It felt like the work that I love, but even more so the people, the
Yeah.
organization that I led, what I was blessed to be able to do, the lives that I was able to touch, some of the additional roles that came with that. I grieve those things because
Yeah.
I took it very seriously, not only the people leadership part, but just the stewardship of the role. I took it very seriously. The company that I work for, I think no matter what company I've ever worked for, I'm going to be a champion for that company. I'm going to wear the T-shirt, I'm going to push it. I'm going to try to make the best out of it every single time. So I grieve those things even more so than the job itself. It was what the job afforded me to be able to do, even being able to give back in the community in a different way and utilizing company resources for that and stuff. And so that was really hard for me. So yeah, I definitely had the why me. I think you look at who's left, who was impacted. And for me, I had quite a few people that I knew that were impacted that day.
Mhm.
But even more so, the people that I knew that were staying. There's always a little bit of question like, what was the rationale? Why me, not them? Was my work not as valuable? Whatever it might be. So I absolutely have that. And I think that that is very natural. And if we try to ignore it, I think that can kind of be even a little bit more painful down the line because we aren't acknowledging what happened. And just
Mhm.
like with anything, if you just keep acting like nothing happened, something's happening. The body keeps score, the mind keeps
Yes.
score, right? And so
Yes.
you have to revisit that to address that it happened to be able to truly move forward from it.
I'm so glad that you said that, because yeah, I realize as well that there you're when you mention the word grief, I realize that yes, grief comes also with losing a job, with losing employment. And as you mentioned, like, I can so relate. It's not just the job itself, but it's the relationships that
Mm-hmm.
we built with the people that we work with, whom we work.
Yeah.
When you think about the fact that we spend the greater part of a waking day with our coworkers and with
Yes.
our colleagues, and
Mm-hmm.
so the loss of those relationships. And so part of finding grace in the unscheduled shift in our
Mm-hmm.
careers is healing that why,
Yeah.
and acknowledging that this is a grieving moment. This is a situation where yes, we are grieving, and understanding that we may ask ourselves, it's very natural to ask, why me? And to realize that we may not find the answers to that question.
Yeah.
So it helps us and behooves us to shift our focus from seeking answers that may never come, quite honestly,
Mm-hmm.
and move towards seeking grace to help us to accept that the journey is being rerouted.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's so important because you can kind of sit in it for too long, right? And then it starts to take over your mind, your activity, and kind of get you stuck. And so I think honoring it, giving it a name, calling it what it is, gives you some space to be able to move forward and language to talk
Mhm.
about it.
Yes, yes.
Hmm.
And also with finding grace in this shift, this unscheduled shift, because
Yeah.
if it was scheduled, we would have given our 2 week notice, right? We would
Uh-huh.
quit.
Uh-huh.
But it was unscheduled, and finding that grace. Um, Also, one nugget that I found is separating worth, WORTH,
Yes.
from work.
Yes.
That we have to. I remember waking up a few weeks in and saying, I don't have a job.
Hmm.
The first week was like vacation, right?
Yeah.
But then it was, Tara, you don't have a job.
Uh-huh.
And then having to remind myself, and I share this in hopes to help someone, that you've got to define, you've got to find practical ways
Hmm.
to remind yourself that a layoff or termination is a change in your employment status.
Right.
But sister, brother, it is not a change in your value as
That's
a human
right.
being.
It is, they are two separate things. And I think we knit them together so well in our
Yeah.
work that it is very hard to pull them apart. And it's funny because if we even think about how we introduce ourselves, if we're meeting people and we're
Hmm.
networking and, we lead with our title and where we work as if that is enough said to tell people all about us. And I think what this season has taught me and what I've understood is that really doesn't say much about who you are as a person and the value you add. And so, as people, would reach out, and I feel just grace that people are willing to talk to me about certain things and feel vulnerable and willing to open up and share. But what I did hear was that worth, like I had this thing, this is who I am. It's like that's not who you are.
Yeah.
You contribute to that role, but who you are is something entirely different. And so figuring out, I think, right from the beginning, what do you have to offer? Who are you without the title? Who are you without the company, without the notoriety, whatever that might look, all the things that you were proud to announce to someone when you were introducing yourself? Who are you without all of that?
Hmm.
And I think that is something that people really have to work through because identity is huge, and who we think we are really does matter because that's going to pour from us. You can tell if someone thinks highly of themselves, right? And I'm not talking
Hmm.
about just kind of going over the edge, but you can tell if someone feels good about what they do, what they contribute to the world. You can see the difference in that. And so I think it's really about making sure that even as if you walk back into another job, you're very clear on who you are walking in there so that nobody can shake that. And I think really that probably goes back to my first layoff all those years ago, because that was really devastating to me that time. And
Mhm.
this was, my children were small. It was just a lot going on. We were dealing with some health things for my husband. And so that hurt me because
Mm.
I felt like I was up and coming in my career, and it just seemed like it had been stalled in just a moment's notice. And like you said, tried to jump right back into work. It was hard to jump into work. This was during the housing collapse then, so it was
Mm.
really challenging working in financial services. And so I wrestled with that so much, even just the way that I worked, that I decided when I went back into corporate again, and I was underemployed for about 3 years. When I went back in, I was like, I will never work the same way that I did before. Work will not be my
Yeah.
identity. It will be the vehicle that I use to live the life that I want to lead, and to try to provide the quality of life that I want for my family, and then to enable me to do the things that I am passionate about, that I'm gifted to do. That's how I think about work. And really, from that point on, that is how I thought about work, and how I allowed work to serve me versus me just giving it all out. So shifting that mindset, I think, is what helped me this time be like, okay. And then from a very basic perspective, and we keep talking about unscheduled, but I always have to go back to, God is not surprised by any of the things that happened to me, right? So it wasn't on my schedule, but it absolutely was on his schedule. And so what that gives me is, okay, God, well, you knew this was going to happen. So you must have a
Yes.
plan.
Yeah.
And being just that
Yes.
simple helps me to relax, because it's like I'm not the orchestrator of all of this. And I think once we understand that we are not the conductor of this beautiful orchestra, it
Yes.
allows you to kind of rest in that, to be like, all right, well, I'm going to see what they tell me to do next. I'm going to listen for instructions. I've got my instruments in hand. I'm going to wait for you to tell me what notes to play.
That is so rich because I think of, as you said that, Jeremiah 29 and 11
Uh
came to
huh.
mind,
Yes.
right? For I know the plans that I have for
Yes.
you,
Yes.
plans not to
Harm you.
harm you.
Yes.
Yes, to give us hope and a
hmm
future. And so falling back in all things, having the word as our
Yeah.
guide, as our compass,
hmm
as our comforter, as our
Yeah.
strength, is just so helpful when we go through anything in life, and most
hmm
certainly as we go through changes in our careers and in our businesses. One of the things that I am mindful of is that the shifts in our career, it's not just about changing the
Yeah.
desk, but it's also about, as you talked about, perspective and shifting and changing our
hmm
perspective. The shift is also about changing our perspective on who we're capable of
Yes.
becoming. Because,
Absolutely.
sometimes, and I know I can admit, I was at this company for 26 years. And so I think that I had kind of gotten to a lull in who I was becoming
hmm
there because I had reached a particular level in the
Yeah.
organization. But now I have more aspirations again because of, thanks to that
hmm
unscheduled
hmm
move, in my career. And so grace is also the
Yeah.
bridge that carries us from the person that we were to the person that we're now
That's
becoming,
right.
and the person that God is allowing
Mhm.
us to mature and to grow
Yes,
into.
yes, 100%. I totally agree. First of all, my mom says that scripture to me so many times, like that, and it proved absolutely true. And so I totally believe that, and I think we have to get to who we're becoming. Sometimes we get settled,
Mhm.
right? Because things
Yeah,
are comfortable. Sometimes
yeah.
I'll talk to people. I joke around. I say direct deposit is a drug. Like we used to that every 2 weeks. We don't even look for it. We just trust that it's there. We have so much faith when it comes to that company putting that money in our account,
Mhm.
right? And this requires a different level of trust, a different level of faith. And it requires something different in who you are as a person to really step out of
Mhm.
that, right? And I think sometimes these life interruptions give us the opportunity to kind of course correct back to what we are destined to become. And so I think that's such a great um, call out, because if we aren't open to that, we just keep going. We're just kind of going with the motions because we know what's going to happen, right? We keep, doing the same thing because we have the expected result, but that does make us sometimes stagnant because we're really comfortable, you know. So
And one thing about God is not the God of autopilot.
at all, at all, you are right.
Ooh,
You are
yeah.
right about it.
It's like, okay, you on cruise, you're on autopilot. Okay, let me throw something
Yeah,
in there to help you to realize again, you need to lean and depend and trust
whole
wholly on me and realize I've got you.
yes. Isn't that something
Yeah,
how we trust God, but also we kind of trust the system, right? And then when that gets out of balance, I feel like he's like, hey, let me just remind you real quick what this is about,
yeah,
who's in control.
yeah.
And I'm working to be very comfortable with that because when something happens, I might want to act out. I can be like, oh, why is this? Like, nope, nope. This is an opportunity for me to trust God first, see what He says first, and to see what's happening in that. That's always better than anything I could have planned. And so I
Amen.
just try to be as an active work. It's not perfect, but just trying to rest in that right away. Like before I fly off the handle, before I go into crisis mode, what am I supposed to be seeing in this moment?
Before I
Yeah,
do that,
yeah,
yes, before I
mhm.
do it, because we don't. I want to try not to have a cleanup on
Yes,
aisle 1920. So let me be proactive, Lord.
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's
Yeah.
good to just kind of back away from that. So, like, I remember that day
Mm,
vividly, right? It wasn't that long ago, but I remember that day because, like I said, I was at home with my mom and my aunt, and we decided to go out to eat. I was like, let's just go get something to eat. Like, I don't need
mhm,
to we don't need to relish in this. We don't need to even keep talking about it. Let's go have something to eat. Let's, go walk around a little bit. And I feel like that was very good for me in that moment to be separated. I
mm,
talked to my husband briefly on the phone and told him what happened. He's like, how you feeling? I was like, I think I'm okay. We're going to see, but just taking that chance, that opportunity to rest, even immediately after, and to do things that separated me from that moment, helped me to give me some space to then allow God to begin to speaking to me, and for me to relax my nerves because I think
mhm.
there's a lot happening in that moment that you're trying to make sure you got all the pieces in your hand. It's like actually I'm going to choose to sit still. I'm going to choose to have a healthy distraction. This will be here when I get back. So, yeah.
Speaking of the people that you communicated with immediately
Hmm.
thereafter, that's a good segue into this question. Safe
Yeah.
circles. Who are, can you think of any types of people that we should or shouldn't have in our inner circle during a transition in our
Yeah.
career?
So I think most immediately, one of the things I wish I don't know how to even get this message to more people, but in those immediate moments, you don't need a lot of people in your circle. Like this isn't like broadcast news, all these things. I really feel like you need to go inward. So, like I mentioned, my first phone call was to my husband. I then talked to two of my coworkers who knew because they were on our team. So they were like, "We just got this news," It's like, okay. But most immediately from that, I kept that circle very small. There were probably maybe just a handful of folks that knew what was going on with me, and I think that was by design. One, I didn't need a lot of noise. And so, one of the things that will happen over time is as people find out, people will start to reach out to you and they'll come and they want to ask you, and they're panicking on your behalf. And
Yeah.
God bless them for caring that much, right? But you really need people around you, in my opinion, who can hold your heart with care without too
Mm,
many questions, too many things that kind of get you riled up. You really need a place of peace to be able to rest in those moments. And so I really encourage people, let your immediate circle know. But
mhm,
it's not for the world. The people that you trust with your heart, the people that you trust with your mind, the people that can calm you when crazy things happen, right? That's who you need
Mhm.
in that immediate circle. You need people who can speak life into you, who can
Yes.
encourage you, so that whenever that feeling does hit, like that day I told you that I cried, was probably about 2 weeks after it happened. But having someone there to be like, it's okay, it's all right. And it's okay for you to cry, right? Not to make it like you can't have emotions, but someone who can
Yeah.
really hold your heart that way in that space for you, I think is critical. I also think it's good to have somebody that's kind of like somebody. I'll say it like some. It's kind of like your Peter, somebody that don't play about you, that will protect you,
Mhm, mhm.
from all the things,
Absolutely.
because everybody is not kind in that season, and so you need
Yeah.
somebody to be there to kind of guard your heart. So somebody to hold it, somebody to guard it, and somebody that you can really go to and ask questions when you have them. So somebody that's kind of on standby that you trust with wisdom. And so, for me, those kind of pieces were the most critical parts for me. And it's hard because, I think even for my mom and for my aunt, I think a lot of times for as parents, they're concerned, like, are you going to be okay? And because I had gone through a layoff before, right? They're like, oh God, like they're
Like,
concerned
it's happening again. Oh my goodness.
again, right? And so I think my reaction was so different. People were like, she doesn't seem to be worried or confused, right? But you need people that kind of have all of those things for you. And I really did not expand very much outside of my immediate, those folks that I talked about in that circle, for probably close to a month. And it was funny because the only reason why I started talking about it more was because a lot of my business partners, the week before, maybe a couple weeks before I've been laid off, I was at a conference. I spoke at a conference,
Mhm.
presented, had gained all of these new networks and things like that. And so they were following up with me because we had meetings scheduled. And so I was like, oh my God, all these people are going to be looking for me. And so I had to start sending notes out there like, hey, you might email me. It's going to bounce back. It's okay. I'm, separated from the company. And they were so kind
Mhm.
and well intentioned and overwhelming because they were like, oh my God. And they started shooting resumes and contacts and, all these things. And let me know if you need support. And here's the things. And it was beautiful to know that they felt, um, they cared enough to want to help
Mhm.
me. But honestly, I'm glad I had a little bit of space because that overwhelmed me. So I think
Yeah.
that safe circle in the beginning is people that aren't going to press you to do a whole lot. They're going to let you kind of settle into things as your own and allow you to kind of emerge as you're ready. To me, that's the best thing you can get in that safe circle. What I do advise against is having someone that's pushing you right away, immediately. Or what are you going to do next? Well, because that you really cannot process that well. I had a very good friend who was impacted, and I was like, well, what this, she had all these things. Well, I have to do this and have to do that. And I'm like, first, you just need to sit still. You're doing too much because those immediate actions you take after are kind of like they're, I don't even know what the word is, but they are kind of knee jerk reactions. And so
Mhm.
that may not be the best thing for you. And so I do think you have to make sure that that's not a part of that circle at the first part because you don't need that in the beginning. Your mind is doing enough gymnastics. You don't need somebody to add to the chaos.
That mental gymnastics and is so true. And what you said about enclosing yourself in with a particular circle, a
Mhm.
small circle is also until you're ready to network and to broaden and to say,
Mhm.
I'm turning my the green frame on
Open
LinkedIn or
door.
whatever, open to work or whatever it is. I'm announcing my new business venture. But
Mhm.
I remember for me, I had when I was notified that my division was being closed was going to close at the beginning of 2019. I was notified of that in like November of 2018.
Mhm.
And I remember a lot of people, as the word got out in the organization, a lot of people were coming to me, saying, you should do this, you should do that. And I remember, and this is where also, if you're a believer in Jesus Christ,
Mhm.
hearing the voice of God is so key and
Yes.
critical as well. I
Yes.
remember praying, and it was maybe about 2 weeks after I was notified, that and God said to me very clearly, your season at this organization is over, but I'm going to take care of you. That's
Mhm.
what the Lord said to me. And I remember, so as people were who meant well, loved me, meant well, were coming and saying, you should do this, you should talk to this person, you should do that. And within the company, people were just giving me advice. And I knew that they meant well.
They mean well.
And I appreciated the mean well, and being a single woman and not having a second income and all the things to
Mhm.
be concerned with, I was tempted to go in my own strength and go in flesh and do some of the things that, and I did a couple of the things that people advised me to do, but then I kept hearing God say, I told you it's over.
I told you. Yes.
I
Mhm.
told you it's over.
Yeah.
And so, I remember talking to my mentor one night. We had dinner about a month in, and she was saying, Tara, you should do this. Have you done this? Have you talked to this person in the organization? And I said, no, I haven't. I said, I really don't feel like to do. I end up telling her, like, I really don't feel like that's the move
That's
that I
not
need to
you.
make.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I said to her, I shared with her what God said to me. And so she was kind of like, okay, but because I believe you, and I believe your relationship with God. Okay, but I
Mhm.
just think, and I said, I had to say, I know you love me, and I know that you want what's best for me, but I
Yeah.
have to go with this. And she respected that, and we were fine. But I knew that again, where people are coming when people genuinely love you, and these were people who I knew really were concerned, but I knew what God said. And so part of this circle is also, like you mentioned, a small circle, but then
Mhm.
also God has got to be right there in the middle of that circle,
That's right.
and being able to tune out or distinguish what's the voice of God, what various versus what is the voice of good people who
Mhm.
mean well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I hope that makes sense for somebody. Like,
Yeah, because it's a lot. There's so much noise, right? And if you are not able to discern what God has given you with what you're hearing from people, which aren't bad things, to your point, people are offering you genuine help from their hearts, from their minds, from their networks, things that have worked for
mhm,
them. And they might all be fine, well, and good, but that may not be what God has told you to do.
yeah,
And I think that that's where that stillness is so important, and where you have to really get out of the noise, because you will miss it. Like, you
yeah,
won't hear him clearly. And I really just, I can't stress that enough. You have to be able to tell the difference. And to me, when things don't align with what he told me, that's not for me.
yeah.
Like, and I take it back to him, because I feel like that's the child thing to do, right? Like, come back, like, is this what you said? No. Oh, okay, then that's not it.
That's not
You
it.
know,
That,
but you just you have to test it and be like, I don't think this is what you said, but you tell me. Is this what, and allowing him to answer. And I really think, I want to make sure that for anybody that's like, well, how do you know if you're hearing the voice of God? How do you know what he's saying? I feel like, for me, all the things that God has deposited in me, those are the things that are coming out. Like, they're already there, right? I heard a good message today that was about transfiguration. It was like, you're becoming, you're transforming. It's like, not that it wasn't there before. It's coming out. It's going to be revealed. And so that was like really stuck out to me. And I was like, yeah, these things will be revealed. And they're things that I know that God has put in me. They're in alignment. And when I do things that are in alignment with him, he always sends me confirmation that that was exactly what I was supposed to do. Like, thank you, girl, for doing that one step. Now here's the next thing. And let me see how quickly you're going to do that, right? And so I just feel like we really have to take those things back, because you can do, one of the things right before I got laid off, a company had reached out to me to interview for a role. And I was like, okay. And I was excited, like, maybe this will be my next thing. Okay, maybe God already has the next job lined up for me, and I won't even miss this job. And the interview process was long, and it was just arduous. I feel like they didn't even really know what they wanted. And that was
wow.
frustrating for me, because I'm like, oh, this sounds like this is about to be a lot, And I just didn't, that wasn't aligned with what I felt like God had for me. I felt like God was preparing me to evolve into something new, but in a way that I wouldn't be stressed, in a way that I would not meet a lot of chaos. in my next season. I had just come from that. Work had been crazy. I had dealt with a little bit of depression. I had gone through some therapy for a couple of months to get myself back to being fortified to be able to lead well. And I just didn't feel like God was going to lead me into another season of craziness. I just did not do it. It
Mhm.
didn't line up with what I had been through and what we had been talking about in our devotional time. So I had to trust like this, if it lines up with what God said, is this peaceful for me? Is it providing me the rest that He said I deserve, that I should have? Like, okay, then I'm going to follow that path. And if not, thank you for thinking of me. Thank you for praying for me. Thank you for your suggestions. But I'm going to have to go with, what my guide says, what my God says.
One thing that you mentioned, you just said a few moments ago too, was about the new thing being given us the ability to basically, I'm paraphrasing, but you mentioned tapping into skills that were already there that we may not
Yeah.
have been utilizing. And I
Mm-hmm.
think about in this moment how in the times in which we're living, I think back to our ancestors and how
Uh-huh.
so many of our ancestors, they tapped into creativity.
Mm-hmm.
They became, while they may have done seamstress work for the community, to get paid for it, some of them ended up opening up businesses
Yes.
as seamstresses and as cleaners, and just the variety of things, electricians, and the
Mm-hmm.
variety of things that our ancestors have done. And my mind just goes back to the fact that we are a resilient
Mm-hmm.
people.
Yes.
My
Absolutely.
God, we are resilient people. And so, part of this, I hope that we are encouraging someone who is at a crossroads. Even still,
Mm-hmm.
you may be saying it wasn't mapped. I'm not feeling like it's been mapped out for me. But Taraline and Shellisa are saying collectively tonight
Yes.
that we encourage you to tap into, to look back, to think on some talent, some skills, some abilities, that some, it could be some soft skills. AI
Mm-hmm.
can't do everything,
That's
right?
right. That's
So think of some skills that you have that you can perhaps monetize.
I think that's so important. And I feel like, so my first question to people always is when someone tells me that they've been laid off, I'm like, first of all, how long can you afford to be off? Like, you got to know your numbers. So I encourage everybody to get comfortable before the news comes. Know your numbers, know what you're set up to do. And in those moments after, the first thing you need to understand is what's your covering look like. For some people, it may not be anything at all, and that's really unfortunate. But for other people, they may be giving you something. And so know that, right? But then, to your point, what do you have? So you can think about it in terms of, all the jars. If we think about the widow, right, the jar she had in the house to fill up with oil. What do you already have that you can make use of? For me, one of the things, of course, I had this training background. I had a lot of great relationships where I was able to, when I shared, what was going on, people were able to point me in different directions in order to gain more business. But the other thing that I had was I write. Like my degree, my undergraduate degree is in writing. And so for as long as I can remember, my mother says, "So when are you going to be writing? I'm still waiting on my book." And I'm like, "Mom, okay, I write every day. That's not what I mean." Okay. But one of the things that came out of this season is a book. And
Talk about your book, please, ma'am.
yeah, yes. So I felt like my experience um, and how it manifested for me, I felt like God was telling me to tell other people about it, to give them a sense of calm, to help them have a plan. And so I created something called the MVP Circle towards the end of last year, where I just invited people who were in work transition to join me. I had 3 sessions during lunch hour on 3 Wednesdays. And I had a few folks join, about 10 people join, and they didn't know each other. But I was able to lead them through some techniques, some guides, some resources and things. I brought a guest in as well. And so when that was over, I was like, gosh, that was really good. What else can I do to help people? And so I felt like God was telling me to write about my experience. And so I have written several books. They all live in my hard drive. I start them, walk away, start them right away. But this one I felt compelled to get it out of my system, get it out, share with people all of the steps. And so my book is called When You're Ready to Move, and it's about finding courage in seasons of transition and navigating through that season. And so the whole purpose of the book was to walk people through kind of the phases that I went through after my transition, and give them prompts and things to help them think through those seasons. So because I had experienced it immediately after, I could write about it to
Yeah.
help someone else. And so it's a short guide. And I was nervous about that at first. And my husband's like, I'm glad it's short because people don't need a whole lot. They need to get to the thing. But I wrote a guide walking people through each of these phases, from the being in the in between to, trying to rebuild. What do you want your life to look like? Finding your voice, and ultimately getting ready to move. And it really just provides some insights from my experiences. It challenges people to think through theirs. There's things for them to journal in. And I just really wanted it to be a unique experience. There's audio notes in there so you can hear from me. But that's what it is. Short and skinny. It's a book to help people navigating any type of transition. I have had people that were grieving the loss of loved ones, people who had job transition, reduction in force, whatever it might be, retirees, just all kinds of things, new entrepreneurs. So it's for life transitions. And that came out. That was something that I got that degree a long time ago, pulled it out to make use of it in this season.
I love it. I love it. And where's the book available?
It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon today. So you can look for When You're Ready to Move. It's on Kindle, and you can get it in paperback.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Those, because like you said, life transitions.
Yes.
It's not just employment, but there are so many transitions. As they say, keep living.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to experience several in our lifetimes.
Yes.
And yeah, this time has been so rich. I, I can't believe we're almost at time. This has been a great conversation. One other thing I want to ask you, or two other things.
Mm-hmm.
Next to last is about maintaining peace
Mm-hmm.
during the time of transition, because
Yeah.
as you're seeing your bills come in, as someone is seeing, the maybe health insurance is not there, and the demands on life just continuing at the rapid pace, and the shift now, the transition in employment has occurred.
Mm-hmm.
What would you offer in terms of tips
Yeah.
on maintaining peace?
I think one is first thing I'm gonna tell you is rest. I think rest is a critical part, because we can be robbed of that, right? When life is stressful, when things are hectic, one of the first things that's impacted is our ability to sleep, and restore our bodies. And so I am serious about rest, because I think you can stay up all night and drive yourself crazy. But the reality is you're probably a little sleep deprived. So that's not going to help you. So rest. Secondly, I think you have to have a routine that builds you back up. And having that routine may look like whatever you need to feel you. For me, it's daily time with God. I have a devotional time. It's not a super long time, but it is a time for me to get the word in, to process, to learn something new. I try to have some type of devotional, something where I'm learning something new every day, or being reminded of something. But that routine centers me, and it allows me to kind of start my day the same way every day. I think the other piece for your piece is to set intentions for every day, so that you're not merely existing and just taking things however they come. What's the priority? What three things are you going to do today? Or if you're able to do those things, you'll feel good, knowing that sometimes life happens, you won't get to any of them, but then you start again tomorrow. So I think that piece. And the part about the bills and all, I remember that from my initial layoff, and just when the severance run, it wasn't long then because I was early in career, but that knowing the resources, and don't wait to research them. You can research in a panic, or you
Yeah.
can plan it out to say, okay, let me figure out what's afforded to me, what's covered for me. Do I have unemployment? Can I afford Cobra? What are some of the other healthcare resources, things that I can tap into? What do I have available to me? And
Wow.
sometimes we go after it in a panic versus saying, what is available to me? And asking those types of questions where people are able to share with you the resources, so that you can, in more of a methodical pace, go after those things. So I try to avoid overwhelm at all costs. And that's what I would encourage people to do to get ahead of it, but pace it out for yourself. So tomorrow might be, I'm going to look and see what healthcare options are available to me. The next day might be, all right, so based on what I learned, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to make this phone call or whatever, but trying not to overwhelm yourself and instead being very strategic and mindful and methodical about your approach to getting what you need.
Love it. Love it. And my advice on that would be to find your glimmer. I'll say it like that. Find your glimmer. And by that I mean identify one activity that brings you peace. That
Yes.
could be a walk,
Hmm.
a workout, some time designated time to work out. It
Yes.
could be a favorite meal. It could be extra time with your family. But find your glimmer and then prioritize that
Yes.
for each week. Like prioritize your glimmer so that while there's voices and maybe a bit of chaos going on and you trying to think things through, you got to have that glimmer so that you are also having moments of enjoyment. And this is my last question to you, Shellisa, to wrap us up.
Yes.
What is have you well identify share a personal glimmer or a moment of grace along your journey in your career path?
Mm, let's see. So I love that you talk about glimmer because you do need that outlet. You need that thing that makes you feel like you, right? That you are
Mhm.
looking forward to. For me, I really like to laugh. And so finding moments, I watch little comedy shows, things like that. I feel like my social media algorithm is made for me because it's little funny bits, things that I can look at and enjoy, and those things just help me enjoy the lightness of life. And so I try to find opportunities to be able to laugh, to be able to do things that make me happy, to put me in that space. And it could be very simple. I feel like God has given me a lot of grace in just giving me spaces to share what I know. And to be a blessing to other people. And I feel like the more that I'm able to give that out, the more He returns it to me. And so just being willing to share. I'm always willing to talk to people, always willing to share my experiences. I try to be as transparent as possible. And that has become very therapeutic for me. Because it keeps the heaviness off me. I'm giving it to others. I'm sharing that experience. And then God gives me more peace and gives me more space to create and more space to share. And so those would be two things I would say. If I were to think about something very practical, which is probably sounds crazy, but like I have a standing hair appointment. My hairdresser, that's every 2 weeks.
Got to keep it
Got to keep it, and
non-negotiable.
it makes me feel good. It
Yes.
makes me feel good. It makes me feel like I'm taking care of that one little thing is
Yes.
major for me. So I think we have to identify what that thing is for you.
And I love what you said about for you liking to laugh, loving to laugh and feeding that.
Yeah.
I know, again, life is heavy right now for so many.
Hmm.
And so with that in mind, I know the rare times that I watch television nowadays, I may turn on something. Last night I watched a rom-com
Yeah.
until I fell asleep because I don't want I can't do dramas. I don't want
Nothing
any
heavy.
horror movie. I don't need any killing right now. That's not what I need. We get
Yeah.
enough of that right real time.
Yeah.
So I needed something that's like a rom-com, a comedy. I need something
Hmm.
like that.
Yes.
Being able to know what you need. I want to ask you if you don't mind if just say a brief word of prayer, just a quick moment of prayer over our viewers who are going through this transition in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be glad to. God, we thank you for this opportunity to come together. I thank you for my sister inviting this conversation in this space for God, for who you know who needs it in this time. Lord, we know that you love us. You created us. You are not surprised by anything
Mhm.
that happens to us, God, in every season of our lives. You are not surprised. So, because you aren't surprised, God, we know that there is a plan for us. We know that you have something more for us, that we are not behind, that you are right alongside us, God, in this moment, in this season, ready to guide us if we only look to you. So, God, I ask you just to touch us right now for everyone that may be feeling discouraged, for everyone that might be overwhelmed, for everyone experiencing underwhelm in this work search, whatever their station may be. God, I pray that you will meet them at that point. We know that you're just big enough of a God to be able to meet
Mhm.
each and every one of us at the point of our need. God, you know the desires of our heart. You know what we need you to move forward. You know our needs practically, God, what those are from day to day. And so, God, I ask you just to meet us at that time and speak a word of encouragement, God. Let us know that you are with us, that you are for us, and that you will guide us through this time, both now and forever and into the future. God, we know that you are building something for us. We know that you've begun a great work for us, God. So we believe that you will finish, you will bring it unto completion. And so we just pray, God, that you will bless everyone and be an encouragement to us in this season. Let us not be distracted by what's happening in the world, God. And let us look to you. Let us know that this all can work together, God, for our good because we love you and we trust you. So I thank you for this time. I thank you for each and every person that is going through a season of plenty and those who are going through a season of want, God, knowing that you can turn it around at any moment. God, we love you and we honor you and we praise and bless your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. This has been another episode of Glimmers and Grace, and I pray that you have been blessed, that you have been encouraged. And please, please subscribe to this channel for future episodes. Please, please share this. We know that there are those who are unemployed, or there are those who are embarking upon new entrepreneurial endeavors. So I would love for them to hear from Shellisa. I thank you, Shellisa, for sharing. And do you have a website?
I do, yes. It's Multrie Ventures MVP.com. So Multrie
Multrie
Ventures
Ventures.
MVP.com. Yes. And I'm on
Awesome.
all the socials, so you can find me there
Awesome.
anytime.
Yes, yes, yes. We want you to connect. Please connect with her. She is a wealth of information, as you heard during these few moments, and is a wonderful, wonderful trainer and a wonderful professional. God bless you all. May heaven smile upon you. And please remember to find your personal glimmer to help you to get through this season. God is with you.
Yes.
Have a great evening.